Hi, Joshua.
Okay.
Welcome to the call.
Okay. Thank you
Welcome to
once
our
again.
August webinar. Really lovely to have you here, as I said. So please just tell us a little bit about ShopKite and the journey so far.
Okay, great. Yeah, I let me start by thanking everyone and appreciating the opportunity to share my story. It's been an interesting journey so far. We started our ShopKite about 7 years ago, and it's been interesting. All the things that businesses have to face here in Nigeria and even outside the country, but there are unique things to this part of the climate that I would like to talk about. Personally, I started out my own career in as a front-end designer, a UI designer, and I did that for a couple of years before moving into advertising for a little over a decade then, and then joining my startup full-time as a CEO for a software company like Shopkite. So that's been the journey so far. And hopefully I'm able to share one or two things about my experience that would be helpful to a few people on the call.
All right, welcome once more. We're all really excited to hear from you. So, because of the amount of time that has just like passed within this period, we'll go right into it, and then afterwards we have questions. So, while Joshua is speaking, we encourage you to just note your questions in the chat box, and then we'll take them individually one after the other. All right, for now. So, Joshua, handing over to you now.
Okay.
I have your screen shared. 1 second.
Okay, I believe you're sharing the presentation from your end. What I have
Yes,
or
I will do.
through. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Once you are ready, you can let me know. Then I can kick off. Okay, I think I'm saying it now. Okay. So yes, I mean, we all know the topic, so we'll just dive into what I put together. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so I will run through this list of content that would areas I will touch, why this matters, why this conversation is important. Um, don't be in a hurry to fail. I'll elaborate on that as we go into the document. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast is a very powerful phrase I learned some few years ago, and it has really helped shape my mindset on how to grow the business. Vibes are not inshallah, the unknown, sense, money, or both. Next slide, please. Money doesn't solve all problems. It's an interesting one because a lot of people will say money answers all things, but not all the time. Selectively. Hopefully, I explain better when we get to that point. Don't swallow a fish. I'll give you more insight on that as we discuss, and then the unicorn myth, and then I give my closing remarks. So I'll dive into the first slide that talks about, you can go next, a bit about myself. I mean, I've done a bit of introduction, but collectively, I've been in I'll say in the professional sphere for about 18 years now. 3 years of my initial career of my time working was as a graphic designer slash UI designer. And then I was in the advertising space for about 12 years. While I was working in advertising, I started out my startup, which is Shopkite, and then became CEO full time some few years ago. So next. So why does this matter? Um, Next slide will talk about a bit as to why funding is important for SMEs or MSMEs, as we describe them here. 46 to 48% of Nigeria's GDP comes from MSMEs, and this is important because sometimes small companies are looked at as if when you're not big, you're not making an impact, but To a great extent, small businesses are really powering the economy in a lot of ways. If we go to the next slide, we see that, you know, 80% of businesses fail within the first 5 years due to avoidable mistakes. And these mistakes range from a number of topics we'll try and address. Furthermore, SMEs, 96 to 97% of all businesses in Nigeria are small businesses, and they account for both employment, growth, exportation to a great extent. So they are really an important factor, and as we move on, we'll learn more about how they play a huge role. So don't be in a hurry to fail. One thing I learned when I started out was, you know, planning was a very vital part of our initial process, and planning properly, not just, putting together some half-assed plan. Have a clear understanding of what you want to do. If you don't plan properly and you just launch your product or you launch your business, it will fail most likely, because it's like when you launch a business, everything is trying to kill it from day one, from the lack of funding to maybe hiring poorly to government policies to, other economic factors or the competitive landscape is all trying to kill the business from day one. So the most important thing is taking out time to properly plan. When I started out Shopkai with my co-founder, we took about 2 years to plan the product, properly design and architecture the entire, product workflow and user experience before we even started writing a single line of code. So we had a clear understanding of what we wanted to do, so that when we start executing, we will have clarity and focus on what the finished product should look like. Right. So next slide, please. So this is also an interesting phrase that, I keep in mind: slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I think I heard this from the military commander some years ago, where he was talking about not rushing into enemy territory. Where you think you're moving slow, you're actually moving fast, because as long as you are smooth, you are definitely making good progress. A lot of people think when they have a great business idea, it should explode overnight. They should just see, people rushing in. And that happens sometimes. But most of the time, and when I mean most of the time, 90% of the time, you will grow gradually. In fact, a lot of the tech giants we look up to today spent decades trying to build up to where they are now. Companies like Google, like Microsoft, like Apple, Uber, Airbnb, all these companies are well over a decade old. In fact, most of them, or some of them, are 3, 4 decades old. So they didn't just get to where they are overnight. And that should be something that should be at the back of your mind when you want to set up, start a business, or while you're running a business. Sometimes it feels like you're not making any progress, but you are, if you stay focused on the vision and you just keep moving forward. The next slide, please. And this is an important one because, I know this word is a very popular one: vibes, vibes. People hear people say my vibes, and, I like positive vibes, good vibes. And sometimes people make business decisions based on vibes, which is really a horrible thing to do. You shouldn't use vibes and inshallah to make business decisions or have business ideas or product ideas. Solve a pain point, not a vanity problem. Oh, I wish I had vanilla ice cream that had agbalumo flavor, because you feel like that should exist, so you want to create a product like that. That shouldn't be the case. You should see a real problem and plan towards how you can solve that problem if it's a vital problem in the society or in the economy. Okay. Yes, I'm getting some feedback here. Sorry, 1 second. Oh, okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so there seems to be an issue with the document. I will just pause a bit for Noella to resolve that and continue once she's done. Okay, I'll go ahead then. So I stopped at talking about, using vibes and inshallah to decide on, make business decisions. Very risky. Yes, I know sometimes people will say, believe in yourself, rely on your guts, but you should rely on facts and figures, do the research, be sure that the product or idea you want to go into is something that makes sense and works in that regard. Uh, make your findings, gather your numbers, reach out to platforms that can help you get clarity on what you need to do, and get down to the nitty gritty. Otherwise, you may end up creating a product that just speak to vibes. And there are lots of products out there. I'm sure you've used a few, or businesses that is just vibes and inshallah. There's no real substance to it, and you don't see the value, so you won't see the customers. If you cannot objectively put yourself aside your feelings and make a business decision, then there will be a lot of problems with that product or business down the line. All right, so next slide, which is planning for uncertainty. This has been really challenging because, especially in Nigeria, where a lot of products and a lot of services are affected by foreign exchange, and that in turn causes the cost of products or goods to rise and fall, erratically. Planning for your product or pricing can be very tricky. So imagine someone who sells phones or laptops or cars or builds apps. As the naira is rising or falling, it's directly impacting your business. So what I would typically advise is plan for 2x the cost of providing your service, and the time it will take to provide that service. So instead of increasing your price every now and then as the economy changes, have a price point. Oh, I'm not a presenter. Okay, that's amazing. All right, I'm going to switch to present. Thank you for that update, Nella. Give me 1 second as I switch. Let's try to do this. I'm sure. 1 second, let me just get my screen open, and I will continue in a sec. Okay. Okay. Okay, I believe everyone can see my screen now.
Yes,
Noella, can you help me confirm if you can see my screen?
yes, I can.
You can? Okay. Yeah, so planning your pricing is really important because you don't want to keep changing pricing. That would destabilize your, or will discourage customers from patronizing your product, or make it difficult for you to grow or expand. Because if one customer buys your product today at a certain price, and then a few days later they are buying it at a different price, it will not be encouraging. It will feel like you're disingenuous or you're trying to extort or exploit people. And that can be difficult. So there should be some, based on your business or product price point, you can determine a buffer area where you say, okay, due to the Naira falling from 1,000 Naira to 1,005, I have to increase the cost of my product from 10,000 Naira to 15,000. Now, 15,000 means you've adjusted for that inflation, but that inflation can still have ripple effects in the next couple of months. So you want to adjust a bit higher, not too high, so you don't discourage customers. So let's say instead of putting at 15,000 Naira, you're putting at like 17 or 18,000 Naira. So that for the next 3 or 4 months or 1 year, you don't have to adjust your pricing. And you can always bring your pricing down. It's better to bring your pricing down than to take it up. Like, it's always good news when your customers see your pricing has come down, especially for a product that is subscription based or it's a recurring inventory you restock on. It's always best to set your prices such that you have enough buffer to bring it down in future than you are pressured to take it higher in future because of the economic factors that are involved, especially for foreign exchange. So there's no specific formula to that. You just have to sit down and say, okay, this has affected my pricing, but if I adjust precisely for what has affected my pricing, then I'm not future-proofing that price point. That means in 3 months' time, I may have to increase price again, and that may not be good for business. Okay, so next is sense money or both. Now, over the years, I've seen a lot of people who say they want to start a business or they want to create a product or provide a service, and they are not in either of these 3 states, or they don't have either of these 3 things. And sense here is the skill or experience or the capability of you providing that product or service. That is, if you say you want to start, making plantain chips because you think there's a viable market for it, you should either have the skill to create plantain chips or the money to hire someone that has the skill to do it, or both. I've seen situations where people don't have either and they think they can create a successful business. And that's just that's self-delusion, basically. You that's not possible. You can't do that. For you to go into a business space and succeed, you should first either equip yourself with a skill that is required to produce that item, or get enough money. Now, of course, and that's why the VC market exists. Venture capitalists, investors, they can come even though you don't have the money. Most times, the best kind of businesses to invest in are businesses that the founders are skilled at it, or at least one of the founders are skilled at that particular thing. So whether it's providing hospitality, healthcare, aviation, education, whatever sector you are planning to go into, have some experience there that would help you build that product or provide that service. And then all you're looking for is the money, or have the money and you are looking for the skilled personnel to hire to enable you build the product. If you don't have either, then don't bother. Just spend time either getting the skill, the ability to do it, or getting the money, or both. And that's a key factor to success. Okay, so money doesn't solve all problems. A popular phrase that goes with this is a bad thing will waste $1 million faster than a good team uses $100,000. There was a Chinese company that reached out to, they are Chinese origin. I think PalmPay and I think OP at some point. So the first time we had the opportunity to partner with I think PalmPay, one of the individuals, a number of the representatives from the company, they were going through our books, trying to see how we've been performing. And one of the things that really surprised them was how efficient we were with our spending. At the time, I think we had raised only $22,000 from family and friends mostly, and year on year we're doing 2x our revenue from the previous year. And the guy was, he wasn't really good. He couldn't really speak English well. So he was like, "How are you able to do this? Like, how is this possible? This doesn't seem possible. Like, how are you spending this amount every year on your overhead and running costs? How's your overhead so low? And your product is still out there and you're still making updates, you're still alive, you're still functioning. Like, it didn't seem possible." And well, everything was there in our books, the people we hire, our structure, our engineering team, everything, our entire approach was very clear. We kept it lean. There's no, excessive hiring of staff, no excessive hiring or purchasing of tools, just what we needed when we needed it, exactly what we needed, and we're very, prudent with resources. And that's something that is lacking a lot when people go into business. Some people want to, you hear the phrase, go big or go home. And trust me, a lot of people have gone home as a result of that thinking, because they think if they can't go big, then they might as well just go home. And that's not true, because like we saw in the earlier slides I shared, SMEs account for a huge volume of businesses and employment of labor in Nigeria. I think 90% of labor, of the labor market is employed by SMEs or MSMEs. So your business doesn't need $1 million for it to prove that it is capable of doing what it needs to do or providing the service it needs to provide. You just need to be as prudent as possible, find the right partners, hire the right people, which can be tricky. Of course, a 1-hour webinar is not going to cover all of these details, but at least it gives you an idea that money doesn't solve all problems. A lot of problems can be solved with planning, with the right partnership, and executing your plan at the right time. Okay, and then speaking of money, don't swallow fish. Just simply speaking to, don't take money from everywhere that you're offered money from. Thankfully, because of my years of working and how much I've followed the funding and VC venture capitalist space, I realized that there are lots of founders out there who are seriously regretting taking money from certain VC companies. And it's not because the VC companies are evil or bad or anything. It's just that they have a different approach to how their return on investment should work. And a lot of times, their own vision for how they want to make their money back does not align with the founders or the business owners' vision of what they want to provide. So you begin to hear things like, "Oh, I think you guys should go into this service. I think you should get payment gateway license. I think you should get license from CBN. I think you should do this and do that." And they're like, "Oh, we don't have the money for that. That's not our vision." "No, don't worry. How much does it cost?" 100 million naira. "Okay, take 200 million, take 500 million." And then they take that money, and now they are on the hook, technically, literally. And now they have to start doing things that are outside of the vision. All of the initial planning you did goes into the trash can, because now you have money, and the person who has given you money is the person who will determine how you will spend that money. And the person wants to see growth, so they want you to hire fast. They want you to expand your team quickly. They want you to do a lot of many things that may not be in the best interest of that idea or product or service you're trying to push out. And that in that entire experience, you end up, in quotes, swallowing a fish, and you're on the hook, because you thought, oh, the money was going to help you accelerate, but in the end, it didn't do that for you. So if the terms feel toxic, walk away. A lot of business owners have had the opportunity to get funding. Some have accepted because they feel if they didn't get it, they'll die off. and some who have decided not to, still alive. We didn't, or will I say, Shopkai didn't take any funding from VCs. We bootstrapped ourselves. The $22,000 we raised was from family and friends. And before you knew it, we started doing over 100 million and above in revenue per annum, and became profitable, I think, December of 2023, which was amazing for that to happen. So fully sustainable without any VCs on our neck. So there's no invisible hook on my back. There's no VC from anywhere saying, hey, how far you need to 10x next year, you need to 100x next year, which can be detrimental to the business. So just so you know, that's very important to look out for, because a lot of people believe in getting funding, which is not a bad idea, but where you get your funding from is probably more important than the funding itself. Okay, so next is, you don't have to be a unicorn. Yes, this is a false idea where a lot of people think their businesses have to be doing $1 billion every year before they can say it's sustainable, or it's, it's now on autopilot. No, you don't have to be doing $1 billion every year. You don't have to be doing 5 billion. If you did 10 million last year and you're doing 20 million this year, you're growing. If you feel you have to be doing 100 million or 200 million because the market is a trillion naira market, and there are over 100,000 or 2 million potential customers out there, all that is a lie. It's not true. The Nigerian market, for example, Shopkite is an inventory app, and it will shock you to realize that our primary target is pharmacies. Now, if I were to ask a lot of us to guess how many registered pharmacies are in Nigeria, I'm sure that a number of people will guess wrong. Like, just guess in the comments. I want to hear. I mean, we're a population of 200 plus million people. How many registered pharmacies do you think exist in Nigeria? Just put your guess in the comments, and I'm going to give the answer now. But if you have the time, just do that just before I give the answer. The truth is, there are just 11,000 registered pharmacies in Nigeria, recognized by both the ACPN, which is the Association of Community Pharmacies of Nigeria, PSN, and all the medical associated institutions that are required to regulate that sector. They're just 11,000. So for somebody who will say, okay, I'm targeting the pharmaceutical space, they're just 11,000 registered. All the other stores that sell medication and drugs that people take, like you see in your neighborhood, are mostly just chemists. They are not registered pharmacists, So they are not licensed to sell medication, and they do it in the shadows. But for registered pharmacies, they're just 11,000. Community pharmacies, I'm not talking about the big names like MedPlus or the likes. For community pharmacies, they're just about 11,000, just a little over 11,000. So how do you build a unicorn, product for that kind of sector when your customers are only 11,000? And it doesn't mean you shouldn't build a product for them. You should, because these are sectors that require technological advancement. They require any kind of innovation that can be brought in. So it's important to have that in mind. Do the research, have the understanding, and get rid of the myth that every startup needs to be a unicorn. If you've not raised 3 million or 5 million or $10 million, then you're not doing something right. That's a lie. So as I said earlier, 90% of, this stats address strictly unicorns. And 90% of profitable businesses are not unicorns. They're just regular small businesses, So the everyday businesses that provide services and products to the everyday person you see, they're not unicorns. They're not billion-dollar companies. So it's important to have that in mind. And unicorns are a specific type of startup valued at over $1 billion, typically backed by venture capital and focused on rapid and often unprofitable growth. which is not ideal in an economy that is very volatile, because a lot of these unicorns are planning or doing their projections based on economic factors that can change rapidly, especially in a country like Nigeria, where today something can cost 500 naira, next tomorrow it can cost 5,000 naira. You know, that's like 100x inflation on some sectors. In some sectors, 3x, 4x, 5x. So, but because of the way unicorns are designed, they may remain unprofitable for years, if not decades. One interesting example is Jumia. A lot of people don't know this, but one of the biggest e-commerce platforms in Nigeria has been unprofitable since day one. And people have tried to model their businesses or products after that, not realizing that that's an unprofitable entity. It's not profitable yet. It still keeps getting funding. I think it got over $400 million worth of funding so far, and it lost about $100 million worth of. It declared $100 million loss, I think, in 2024 or 2023. By the end of 2023 or so. Who has $100 million sitting down to waste? So be wise not to push yourself that hard. Okay, so I'm getting to the end of my document, and I just want to recap on a few things I've talked about, which I feel small businesses, or you have an idea for a product or a service, what you need to focus on. There are three main things. Number one is planning. Planning in advance helps you to stay focused on the goal and true to the vision. It's that simple. It's really underrated, but it's very important. Have your plan, let it be as detailed as possible. Take your time to be sure of what you want to create, do the research, put together as much data as possible, and strategize carefully. Then the patience. Don't be in a hurry to launch or partner or add new features. A lot of times, people have a product, it's a good idea, but you then start overwhelming it with features after feature after feature, just days or weeks after you've launched the product. All of a sudden, you want to add AI this, you want to add, automation that, you want to integrate payment, you want to integrate security system, you want to integrate all sorts of things, and the MVP is lost. People can't even enjoy what the product is. One interesting case study that comes to mind is the Habari app that was launched by GT Bank a few years ago. It was very popular, a lot of people talked about it, but it failed on arrival, almost on arrival. It was supposed to be a melting pot of products that people use every day. I think the CEO said 9 products or 9 apps that people use every day, from shopping to gaming to sports to chats to news to, e-commerce and the likes. And they put it all in one, and they were like, okay, yes, people use different products that provide this to them every day. So if we have an app, like a super app that can do all of this, we'll win the market. And the opposite happened. They didn't win the market at all. Too many things will just confuse people. And then the third most important thing to look out for is partnership. Partnership is really important. I'm always very grateful that I, picked the co-founder I have today. Really important. That can make or break. I mean, if you have everything and you have the wrong partners, you will still fail. If you have funding, you have skill, and you have planning, you're patient, but you have the wrong partner, disaster will happen. We've had a number of companies approach us over the years. I mentioned PalmPay. We've had the opportunity to receive, contacts from companies like Flutterwave, OPay, and the likes. Not all of them that we've gone with, and in fact, some of them we've had to discontinue our partnership because it didn't align with our core vision and our offering. So partnership is really important. I would just say that these 3 things are the most important. It's a broad prospect, or would I say, it's a broad overview of these topics and ideas that I have gone through. Uh, it doesn't give much detail, but hopefully this will be a good starting point for anybody on the call to start with on how they want to go about, managing or starting their business or product or service or idea. And that's it. That's all. I hope I wasn't too. I know we spent a lot of time trying to resolve technical issues, but did the best I could to, breeze through the document. Hopefully, if there are questions specific to certain areas, I'm more than happy to take them. If not, back to you, Noella.
All right, thank you so very much, Joshua. That was such a nice session, and I like your slides as well. They're very, very engaging to the eyes. Thank you for, all the tips that you have shared and all the things that we have to keep in mind. As I said, when we began the session, whether or not you're currently, someone who runs an MSME, entrepreneurial skills are very, very important, and they are always going to be important. So for everyone is here, even the 9 to 5ers, because I believe that some of us here actually have 9 to 5s. The Nigeria that we live in today is is a Nigeria whereby entrepreneurial skills are always going to come in useful, always going to be very handy at all points in time. So thank you very much for your presentation, Joshua. It was really enlightening. So right now we'll be taking questions. So for any question that you have, you can please just drop it within the comments and then Joshua can address them. Whether there are questions about things that he spoke about, things from his slide, things from his presentation, or things that you just like to ask a founder who is at that stage, things that have been bothering you or you don't have an answer to about your own journey, now will be a great time to just ask your questions in the chat box. All right, so we're waiting for questions, and so while we do that, on social media prior to the event, we had this little sticker on Instagram where we engaged, we encourage our viewers, our audience, to just drop in any questions that they will have ahead of time, and we just have 3 of them. So while we're waiting for comments for people who are here that have questions for Joshua, I will just ask these 3 questions and they can handle them one after the other. All right.
Okay.
All right. So the first person says that she says, she or he, my fashion business is doing okay online, but how do I know when to open a physical store? I have the money. So this person is pretty much just asking whether or not they should rent and what the utility is, So maybe you could speak to that from your own experience as well.
Okay. So it's hard to tell what to do now because there are a number of factors to look at before making that kind of decision. If she's into fashion, will a physical store enable people, test outfits? Is that the goal? Or like how often does she get that kind of request or returns? Because if you sell wearables and people try them on and they're like, it doesn't fit and you have to return, what percentage of your sales amounts to that? Is it 10, 20, 40? If it's a high percentage, then opening a physical store would be a good idea where people can go in, have their, fit checked or have their sizes checked or test wares properly and purchase. So that would this would determine that if this is a situation where she has lots of returns due to improper sizing, then a physical store would be a good idea.
All right. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that response. I trust that the person who asked that is also on the call now. That I trust that they've taken that into consideration. All right, I have a question within the chat, and it says, "How to take my logistics business to a very high level?" From Riebelle Ismail.
Okay. So logistics it's a very difficult space to manage. I think the biggest problem with logistics is trust with the personnel that is being hired to provide the logistics service. So I think the best way or from what I've seen, because we tried going into logistics at some point, but it was too disastrous, so we stepped back. So whoever is in logistics, I salute that courage and ability. But Summary is, if you can crack your ability to hire right. In fact, I will summarize it like this. Logistics is a HR problem. If you can hire people that are trustworthy, or you have a process of hiring people that are trustworthy, then you can, excel in logistics. That's just it. You have to have some kind of system in place that enables you to keep the people you hired in check. And when I talk about people hiring, I mean the, dispatch personnel.
Yeah.
So if there's a process in place to enable that, then you can grow that process and invariably grow your logistic business.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's just take a little bit of a pause for now. All right. So
Okay.
right now, one of our my colleague Chibueze will be dropping some trivia questions within the chat, and so we would like to have your answers to those questions, and then we can from there pick our winners. So we'll announce the winners just right after our Q&A session. For now, the trivia questions. Some of them are just about doing business in Nigeria. Some of them are about Joshua's presentation, and the things that he mentioned. Some of them are, very just take a look at our comments. Chibueze will be dropping the questions now. And if you have the answers to any one of them, please just drop it. And you can be one of our winners. All right. So the next question is
Okay.
from Namdi. And his question is, how can a small business compete with a larger player, larger players rather, in terms of business development? And it's very interesting because, funny enough, one of the questions that we have on social media is from a baker. And the baker says, give me a second. The baker says, I bake cakes and I actually don't know how to compete with bigger companies that can offer lower prices. One of those, funny enough, when I have to order a cake for someone, I always order from a particular big company, because they can make their cakes at lower prices and really good rates. So someone who's a small business owner is asking how best they can compete. And again, one of our other questions refers to what you spoke about in terms of funding, in terms of HR, hiring, and how to know that someone is going to be good staff. All right, so the first question is about competing larger players. Is there any advice that you have in that regard?
Okay, yes. I mean, because let me first refer to one experience I had. So there's this company, I'm not going to mention their name. They reached out to us and said, we want to partner with you. And we're like, okay, no problem, go ahead. So we gave them the terms of partnership. They didn't agree to price, and then eventually they resorted to threaten us, and try to force us to accept their pricing and partner with them, because they were like, according to the guy, he said, we are bigger than you guys. We made $10 billion in revenue previous year, and you can't compete with us. And they said this to my partner, and he called me and he was like, hey, look at what these guys said to me. And I laughed. And he was like, why are you laughing? These guys are big. They could really take us out. So is big companies are slow typically, right? They take a while to make decisions. If Microsoft wanted to change their logo right now, it would probably take them a year or 2 years or 5 years to do it. But if a small business owner wanted to change their logo, they could do it in 10 minutes, So those are the unique, advantages of being a small business. And how you compete is take a look at those things that it will take a bigger company to do, and focus your energy there. There's so many things that big companies can do, they can't play with their brand in certain ways. They can't make certain offerings. They can't personalize their products in certain ways. So you want to look at those things and focus your energy there. Whether it's how you customize your products or you provide your offering, it may be yours, of course, obviously will be more expensive, but you can make yours more personalized. You can make decisions in the company much faster than bigger companies can. And that's really the advantage. Recently, a financial institution which we reached out to and said, can we collaborate with you guys on this level? All you need to do is change this aspect of your product. They said, no, we can't do it. We're like, why? They said it would take us 3 weeks. And this is something that would take us minutes to do. And even after 3 months, they still couldn't implement it. So we realized that, that's our superpower, speed.
True.
Yeah. So of course, relative, because of course you can move at a certain speed as regards certain things, but as it relates to bigger companies, you can be way faster than them when it comes to decision making. So focus on that aspect, and trust me, you'll find.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for that answer. It makes a lot of sense because, you are more, your feet are on the ground. You're able to see, you're able to just do market research. You're able to see what obtains in your own industry, and you can instantly apply those lessons like on the go. You can apply them ASAP and see quick
Yeah.
results. So yeah, thank you for that insight. And I think let me just move on to the next question. It's from Namdi as well. It says, "How do I stay motivated and focused when my business growth feels slow and uncertain?" You might even take
Okay.
that from a personal point. How do you stay motivated, and what would you advise for someone else?
How do I stay motivated? It's tough. I would say I meditate, and because I guess um, it's a tough one, honestly. Because apart from the fact that business can be slow, sometimes business can retrogress or slow down, or even you're having 10 new customers every day, and then you realize it's dropping to 5. And you're not doing anything wrong. You are following all the rules. You are making sure that you ensure the business is doing right. You are there on time. You're providing proper support. I guess the whole is just to not bury your head in despair, or looking to the sidelines. Just focus on yourself. Just whatever you can do, listen to music, pray, or meditate, but don't get distracted by how others are progressing, because that can also be a big point of discouragement when you see on Tech Cabal or Tech Point or all these platforms, oh, this company just raised $4 million. It can make you feel like you're not moving at all. But
Anything. Mm.
that point, just stay focused, keep sharpening your own products, keep improving it, provide good support. Just bury your head in your product or service or business. That's all you need to do, and hopefully you stay motivated.
Definitely. Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for that
Well,
answer. So that other question from social media is really, like you said, it's a HR concern. The question is there a way to know for sure that someone will actually be staff? Is there a way to guarantee it from the beginning while you're in hiring process? Because I'm pretty sure, a lot of small business owners might not really have, lots of like a robust HR system. So before they get
yes.
to that, is there a way to be able to say, okay, well, if you see this or see that in this person, you should be able to say,
So it's I would say the qualities are: one, drive over skill, right?
"Mm, okay,
Someone that is driven, I would value over someone that is skilled. Not to say skill is not important, drive is way more
mm-hmm.
important. If someone is driven, I mean, you can always learn. People can acquire skill. They
Yeah,
can learn if they're right. So someone who is young and driven is way more valuable, and probably you should put more attention to those kind of candidates over people that are more
mm-hmm.
experienced, maybe much older, right? Uh, Second is hire slow but fire fast. Now, when it comes to hiring and firing, a lot of people are very sentimental about it, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
avoid family and friends when it comes to hiring, except you can put aside your bias and fire where you need to fire. You know,
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, it will be very difficult for you to grow as a business. Um,
True.
I always believe in, once you get to a point where you feel like, oh, this staff is not delivering what it needs to deliver, there's no need to be sentimental about it. Just end the partnership at that point, or the contract, and start your hiring process. Take your time when you want to hire. Have your test or whatever you want to do, have your process in place, and take your time to hire. But when it's time to fire and you feel like this person isn't competent enough, hire fast. There's no intuitive or proven method of detecting the right.
Stability.
If anybody says that, oh, these are 4 ways to detect, it's all lies. People are good at presenting themselves for hiring. The way they get the job, they change mood and change character. It's fine. It happens all the time. I've experienced that a number of times, which is totally okay. It doesn't mean they're evil or bad. It just means people are just.
Right. Alright. I think the network is a little shaky. So we have a question within the Q&A box. Let me just access that because someone has mentioned to me that they have left a question now. Okay, he says, he says, actually, any lean strategies for running my business with minimal capital, especially during tough economic periods? Like the Nigeria of today. Any lean strategies for running my business with minimal capital, especially during tough economic periods?
Okay. Any lean strategy? Okay. So for one, depending on the type of business, most of the time or most every business requires some kind of resource or materials or raw materials. If you are producing something like cake, for example, you want to ensure that you get supplies from the right source, right? And durability is more important than affordability. I learned that the hard way. So we used to buy products from certain suppliers in China, and they used to break easily. They were a lot cheaper, I think maybe like 100K or so, and they sold out faster. But they broke faster, which means our support lines were more stressed out. So in the end, we thought we were saving money by buying cheaper products. We weren't. Those products broke faster and the costs rippled back to us, ricocheted back to us. And at some point, we changed our mind and said, let's go for something more durable, more expensive, but that gave us more peace of mind. So in the effort to be lean or spend less, you may trade that for peace of mind if you're not careful, right? And you don't want that. So being lean, do as much research as possible to ensure that your resource tools are cheaper. We try to ensure that for items that okay, sorry, I'm reading the chat. For items that are like long-term items, you keep your costing to a minimum. Whether it's renting an office, if the office space is not significant to, portraying your business, don't go renting an office space on the island or in some expensive neighborhood. You don't need all that. Our office is in a very humble part of Lagos, so that's not a big part of our product or our offering. So you want to look at that. But some people will be like, oh, I want to rent somewhere like, Ikoyi, Lekki. It's all good, but those will raise your overhead quickly. So for things like that, you can keep on the lane. But for recurring items that your customers will use regularly, you shouldn't compromise in that regard. Instead, stick to quality because that's what will help your brand grow. Don't be too lean to the point where it destroys your brand equity and destroys the trust that customers have in you. And that would be my response to that.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Joshua. And there is another question within our Q&A.
Okay.
Second, it's from Kehinde. However, this question is a nairaCompare question, which is very good. I mean, because it just brings me to what I was going to speak about, and then we'll take one last question. All right,
Okay.
so he's asking, and then I'll just answer this. He's asking for alternative funding sources that actually work, beyond what the government keeps advertising. I assume that because you already spoke about, downsides of, funding funding by, outside investors, and he can tell that he or she can tell that, some of these government grants might not be as reliable or as fast. So he's asking for alternative funding sources. You spoke about bootstrapping. So here, I think I would like to just insert nairaCompare here. It's quite a perfect place. So thank you for that question. So nairaCompare is a financial services marketplace. When you actually think of, finances, when you think of financial decisions, right, the first thing that should come to mind is nairaCompare. And why is that? It's because at every different stage of you making a financial decision, nairaCompare can just be very, very helpful for you, right? Would you like to take a loan? Would you like to make an investment? Would you like to check out, the rates of certain currencies today? Whatever it is, whatever kind of decision you would like to make about your money, you can easily just figure that out on nairaCompare. Now, for you as a business owner, as an MSME person, you can find business loans on nairaCompare. You can get your business funded on nairaCompare up to tens of millions, depending on the documents that you have and what the requirements of any provider are. All of your typical, all your favorite banks, your favorite, funding machines, they're all there on nairaCompare. Let me give you an example. Okay, I have a need, as a business owner that I would like to take care of, and this need has come up. I don't have the funding right now, and I know that this is the amount of time that I have to pay back. This is the amount of interest that I know is too high for me or too low for me. All of these factors, you just go to nairaCompare, input it, and it helps you make the perfect decision for your business and for the time frame and for the finances that you have already. Or you have some amount of profit, and you're thinking, how best do I reinvest this? Maybe into a place outside of my business. How best do I reinvest? Do I want to put some of this money in a fixed deposit savings plan? All of these things as a business owner or as a 9 to 5, well, because I know that there are a lot of us here, whatever kind of financial decision you would like to make, think nairaCompare first. nairaCompare will always be your best companion for decisions of that nature. So yes, Kendi, that's the answer to your question. That's a great answer for your question. You're trying to find more funding for your business, you're trying to raise more capital. nairaCompare is going to help you make that decision. And it's pretty fast, simple, as long as you have your CSC and you have your dream as well. Bring your dream, bring your CSC, bring everything that you have, just and come and apply for a loan. It doesn't take too long to get approvals, and you have your funding. You don't have to wait for government grants. And you don't have to wait for an investor that is going to decide and tell you that, okay, you know what, I need you to change your logo, I need you to change your business industry and all of those things. So just come from a reputable financial services organization, you get your loan, get your capital, and you're good to go. All right, so that's for Ken's question. But there's another one from someone within the Q&A. So I will just read out that question for you, Joshua.
Okay.
Yes. Says, how do I protect my business from unexpected policy changes or regulatory shifts mid-year, interest rate, VAT, imports and export policies, etc.? Very interesting. In Nigeria today, it seems like there are lots of policy changes that come up every few months.
Yes. Yes, absolutely right. So how do you protect your business from that? Well, I would say first is ensure you have a very good legal team or legal personnel at your beck and call. Don't try and interpret things for yourself. Most of the times when these policies are going to change or might change, having a legal team, it means that you have someone that has their ears on the ground in that space. So if a policy is coming, you may get hints from your legal advisor on what to do or how to adjust. There are a few coming in 2026 that is going to shake up the space rigorously. Both the ones that will affect importation of goods. There's one from, FIRS has been rebranded to, I think, NRS now, which is National Revenue Service or something like that. And they are going to be, they're going to have more power. They have been granted the ability to monitor all transactions from every financial institution in the country, not to deduct taxes, but to be able to track where money is going and where it's coming from. So if you been paying your taxes or you've not been meeting up with tax regulations or tax requirements, in 2026, it's going to be, serious. There are also other policies around open banking, which I think was announced early this year that will be launched in August. But I don't think there's any news to that yet. I'm guessing before end of the year that may be announced by CBN. This is as a result of I mean, as CEO, I have access to legal team and other, stakeholders in the space like auditors and the like. So keep these people close to you because they have the information or they have an idea or they have insights to some of these policy changes. So if you don't have a legal expert within your team, you should do that. Yes, it may cost you, but that cost is very essential. It's
Important cost.
as against the potential cost that will come when you are absolutely unaware or you're taken by surprise by a policy change. So that's the best I would say you should do. Just have a good legal expert at your, within your team that can help you, mitigate or at least plan ahead towards such policy changes in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm. All right then. Our last question from social media has to do with scaling, and it just says, should I focus on growing my existing customer base or finding new customers? I think that's really okay. The person didn't specify what industry that they are in. The question is, should I focus on growing my existing customer base or finding new customers?
Well, since there are not enough specifics to work with, I'll just refer to a phrase I heard some time back. When you're building a product, business, or a service, build a product that a few people love than building a product that a lot of people like. Yeah. So having a few customers that love your product is way more important than having a lot of customers that like your product. Because word of mouth is still the most powerful means of advertising to date. If you have people going out there that love your product, speaking about it, you grow faster than having a lot of people that like your product. So do your current customer base really love your product? If the answer is no, then you probably need to pivot and find or provide products or services that can give you that kind of customer base.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for that answer. I'm pretty sure the person will be on the call just listening as well. All right, so thank you so much. This brings us to the end of our session with you. Thank you all for your time. Thank you all for your attention as well. I'll just talk a little bit more about nairaCompare and the other things they're able to do right before we pick our winners. So there was just right before we pick our winners as well, based on the answers to the questions, just to see how people are listening and how people know all these things about nairaCompare, about doing business in Nigeria. So thank you very much, Joshua. Yes, thank you very much. So now I would like, business owners, this is a good time to, if you're not answering questions in the chat box, it's a good time to just introduce yourself, mention, okay, this is what I do. This is, where I'm a tailor and I live in Lagos, or, it's a nice way to be able to connect and network with people who are within the same area or within the same industry as you are. So you can just drop your information within the chat box and tell us a little bit more about what you do, so that, you never know what could come out of it. But for now, just the end, just close. Let me mention a few more things they're able to do on nairaCompare. All right, so outside of just comparing financial products, outside of saying, okay, right now I'm about to make, thank you. Right now I'm about to make this financial decision. What should come to mind first? nairaCompare. But outside of that, you can also check your credit score for free. Now, when it comes to taking loans, especially personal loans, a very, very important factor is your credit score. Most financial institutions will take a look at that. Using your BVN or NIN, they'll take a look at that information and know whether or not they can grant you loans, know whether or how much of, what amount of loans they can actually grant you, so you can check your credit score for free on nairaCompare. And if you would like a more robust and detailed credit report, you can also get that on nairaCompare for a small fee. And another thing you can do on nairaCompare is check out crypto. If you're someone who is into the world of cryptocurrency and things of that nature, you can always check out your favorite exchanges. Well, maybe favorite is not the right word. The exchanges that you typically dabble in. You can check out all the rates per day and per week. You can even have updates for these things delivered right into your mailbox. So you can do that on nairaCompare as well. Pretty much, like I said, once it comes to financial decisions, first thing that should come to mind is nairaCompare. We're also introducing a couple of new products. One of them has just recently been launched, and it's our diaspora offering. So I'm pretty sure everybody here has somebody that is abroad who is important to them, right? Family, family friend, just business partner. If you're abroad or you know someone who's abroad that would like to have a Nigerian bank account from the diaspora and create it completely online and remotely, a good way to do that is to come to nairaCompare and compare diaspora accounts, whether diaspora savings accounts, diaspora current accounts, or diaspora domiciliary accounts. So that's another thing that you can do on the nairaCompare platform. Savings, fixed deposits, FX, you want to see the rates for today, dollar, things of that nature. You can always just check nairaCompare as well. So that's what I'd like to leave you with today. Just think about that, keep that in mind whenever you have a financial decision to make next. Let nairaCompare, let it just come to your mind first. Let's be your first option when you have to make a decision, right? So thank you all for your time and for your attention. We are trying to compile the list of winners, and I think a good option would be to, okay, we're not done compiling the list of winners. We have so many answers here, and thank you all for the participation. I can see that most people answered most of the questions, like they answered all the 10 questions. I was surprised that nobody tried to answer 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. All right, thank you all for your participation. We'll just compile the list of winners, and we're looking at all these answers, and we'll reach out to you right after, because I don't want to keep you all on the call while we're crunching the numbers, because the intention was that you answer 1 or 2 or 3. But okay, let me just introduce, as many people as I can from the comment section, so that if you know that you are within that line of business, you can connect and network with one another. All right, so we have someone on the call. The person's name is Kenny, and he says, I run event management and logistics businesses in Lagos, starting out with the logistics business, but more established with events planning. All right, so if you have in mind an event that is coming up for you or for your company or for someone else that you can always just reach out to Kenny. He's right within the chat section, and you can have a conversation about it. I think there's another response from, there's a response that, okay, I think it was up ahead. Does anyone else run a business within Lagos or anywhere else in Nigeria? Well, outside of Nigeria, is there anyone who has a business that they would like to talk about or just like share? Okay, if there isn't, let me just mention that we have a community on Telegram where it's a closed community where we're able to share deeper and further insights about nairaCompare products, but also nairaCompare updates, everything that is coming up within any time period, we share on our Telegram. We also have a weekly digest that we share and which you all be added to. We hope that it gives a lot of value. We try to tailor it towards giving very, very important and helpful money information, because we're your financial partner. So other than that, you can follow us on social media everywhere at nairaCompare NG. So nairaCompare NG, no hyphones or anything. So yeah, the link to our Telegram channel will be down below in the chat box. So you can as well just join and stay updated. Keep connected with us. We really, really like to, keep this relationship that we have going. All right. So this is for August. We have another webinar coming up in September, and you'll be the first to know for everyone who's here. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for your attention. And we'll reach out to you for all of our winners. We'll reach out to you and send you your airtime prizes. All right, thank you. The time is 5:15, and we're going to bring this to an end now. All right, everybody, have a lovely evening. Bye for now.